Greetings. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the first Q&A. And I had been hoping to do this live as a live stream, but there are a few technical things I need to put in place first, turns out, and that wasn't going to happen before I wanted to answer these today. So still work in progress next time. So what's happening here is I have a question from several questions from patrons, and I'm going to read them aloud and I'm going to answer them to the best of my ability. I'm going to answer them in a way I've been reflecting on them all week. I've been writing about them, kind of connecting with my own background and training in all the things that I've been able to learn about and from my teachers. And also I'm kind of calling in some intuitive support as well. So this is kind of scripted, but not really. This is going to be an in the moment sort of thing in a lot of ways. Right, let's get going. Here we go. So here are the questions. What is my body up to when my mind is busy? What is vulnerability? What is power? Where do they overlap and how is that embodied? And this person continues to write, for me, being in a body feels vulnerable. Being embodied feels like a superpower. Desiring something feels vulnerable. My heart's desire and knowing feels like a superpower. Being seen and heard feels vulnerable. Taking my place feels like a superpower. Experimenting feels vulnerable. Play and freedom feel like superpowers. And then they say, thanks for giving me the opportunity to bring these forward. Okay, so this is amazing. What a rich questions and observations here. So thank you so much to that person who wrote them in. This is so cool. I'm going to kind of break it down and talk about things bit by bit as we go. So let's see. So the first question, what is my body up to when my mind is busy? My mind is busy. What is my body up to when my mind is busy? So the image that I got for this one is of the mind almost like a child, like a little bit wound up child that's here and there, da, 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 da. And the body is kind of this, patient, but also like, can we bring it back a little bit? Parental type figure. I think the body is patiently waiting for us. I think our bodies are always here, ready to bring us back to the present moment, filled with their own processes and intelligence, and that the body spends a lot of time waiting for the mind to come back to it. Even when you are focusing your mind and really using your mind in this active way, the body can be with or not. And when the body is with, it will always bring more power. I do think the mind wants to escape the body a lot, and it gets the opportunity in a way when we sleep. But even when we sleep, we're not totally devoid of the body. You have those dreams where you keep dreaming about being in the cold and you're cold. Your blankets fell off, or you're looking for the bathroom and it's because you have to pee. So there is this consistent communication that we really can't break until we're not inhabiting these bodies anymore. But we can either sort of honor that communication or forget about it. Forget about it. So I think my opinion is when your mind is busy, if you're feeling unembodied, if your mind is busy without a sense of like, and I know where my feet are, I'm aware of my space, I'm aware of my breath, because you are breathing, that the body is just patiently waiting for the mind to return. Okay, next question. The next question, we're getting really into some deep stuff here. What is vulnerability and what is power? Where do they overlap and how is that embodied? Whew, this is big stuff. So again, these are just what I'm going to share. Take at your discretion. These are in a way maybe a bit unanswerable as far as this is not anything definitive, but here are my thoughts and intuition and what I've learned around these things. What is power and what is vulnerability? Power is connection. When we are empowered, when we're feeling empowered, when we have our own personal power, we're connecting to something within us. It could be this connection between mind and body. We're connecting with the ground. We're connecting with, and this is where it gets tricky, because again, what is power? I don't know, really. But it's like that quote from Esoteric Anatomy. We know energy by its phasic changes. We know it because it moves from one thing to the next, and that gives us a little sense of definition. And I think we know power because we know the circuitry of when it's connected and when it's not. So connecting to something deep within us gives us power. Power is honest. Power is a clear channel and a hookup in between. And this also relates to the power to connect with others, the power to connect with an animal or a plant or an idea. Power may also involve resolve to the amount that we commit to something, that we make a decision, we resolve to move in a direction or release something, we access a certain amount of power in service to that. Power is like energy or gravity. It's available. It's around in all of these things and all of these ways. But if our connection, I just keep seeing like a plug or like a spark plug or something. If the connection is frizzled and frayed, we're not going to be able to uptake as much power or let the channel be as clear. Power and vulnerability share a lot. Vulnerability, the first thing that came to me with vulnerability is that vulnerability is kind of living on the edge of our core. In a way, it's kind of living on the edge of our power. It's living on the edge of this kind of true centered power that we can all connect to. And vulnerability is also relational in a way. Again, whether you're within yourself or to someone else, there's something about exposing or sharing our experience on the edge of our power that is a kind of the power and vulnerability. So if I am willing to be in truth, this is another thing power and vulnerability share, is this truth, is this honesty. So when I am being true and honest about my limitations or feelings or experiences or desires, then there is a power in that, letting that be seen, whether that's by myself or another person. There is also vulnerability in exposing not just our limitations or our pain, but there is a lot of vulnerability in exposing our pleasure and our joy and our love. Some may even argue there's more vulnerability in that. When we bring forth something that lights us up, there's often more fear of that being closed down. That experience of offering our love and it not being received is a very painful one. And that goes back to the power hookup. It's like, if that place between, if that plug isn't fitting right, then it can kind of short circuit out and we may distort how we flow our current. Power and vulnerability can be worn as a mask. So core energetics teaches that we have our core self, and they define the qualities of love, power, and serenity. I would say vulnerability is in there as well. And that we can also distort all those things into a mask. We can have a power mask. And so the power mask may look like power over or just a large wall. It's not grounded, again, connected, hooked up to our inner self and the earth or the world around us. Power, it's power of domination. That's not a real power. It's energetically what I see with the mask is that it literally is out at the edges. It's more at the edges. If you're pushing a quality, if you're pushing something out to the edge of your field, that's the mask self. When it's integrated and in the center of you, that's the quality of the real self or the real embodied integration of the quality. And now same, I'm pulling up the rest of this statement because this really addresses this. The same with vulnerability. Vulnerability can absolutely be worn as a mask. And this is happening a lot. This happens a lot at different times in different ways. We sort of flex between a power mask and a vulnerability mask. And vulnerability mask is tricky. But one thing that happens is the quality of vulnerability mask is also that there's not the hookup allowed. So if you're allowing your vulnerability to be seen, which is already very frightening, right? But we allow that space just on the edge of our core to be seen. We share what feels deep and true, and vulnerability might bring up fear. And yet if we're unable or unwilling to let there be exchange around that, to let maybe someone that can help us or see us be with it, or someone can help or see us, but we refuse it, then we are again off kilter with kind of the connection piece, right? So the vulnerability mask often looks like I will wear this vulnerability as a badge, but I don't want to remove it. This is the burden of the badge. This is, again, I put it, whatever it is, out here and I wear it here, because then you're interacting with this rather than this, yeah? You're interacting with kind of the edge, rather than the center. And I think that what happens is we can tell the difference in quality. So this, I'm going to bring this into this question, this part of the question now. So this writing, and I think that this actually is like you're talking your wisdom right here and you're sharing it with us. So here is the wisdom that this patron, hi, is sharing. Being in a body feels vulnerable. Being in body feels like a superpower. Desiring something feels vulnerable. My heart's desire in knowing feels like a superpower. Being seen and heard feels vulnerable. Taking my place feels like a superpower. Experimenting feels vulnerable. Play and freedom feels like a superpower. Okay, so I'm going to get into that actually a little bit more. But before I do, I just want to say that with the mask versus the kind of core version of the qualities of power and vulnerability, which is what we're talking about here, it's almost unnameable, but it's knowable. It's a knowable difference in the quality. It's something you feel in your gut or in your heart, if that is really in alignment or if it is in kind of this masked version. So these statements are so interesting to me. So I think that that's a little bit what they're talking about here. I think they're talking about the difference between something feeling a little like not quite hooked up and something really feeling like grounded and aligned and in relation with all. And that's kind of the difference that they're maybe naming between the vulnerability and the superpower. But I think there's something else I'm hearing in this question. And so I'm just going to go with this for a moment. That I also think maybe what they're talking about, what you're talking about out there, is beginning versus completion, or beginning versus follow through. There is a risk always in beginning, and I think that's what I hear from this particular person. And this isn't everyone, but from this particular person, that the beginning of something is maybe where the vulnerability feels, where there's more fear, where there's more kind of like, I better contract around this, because it's like desiring something feels vulnerable. My heart's desire and knowing feel like a superpower. Being seen and heard feels vulnerable. Experimenting feels vulnerable. Play and freedom feels like superpower. So here's the deal. We do have to be willing to take risks. We do have to be willing to take risks in service to our power and vulnerability. So we have to be experimenting with risk-taking in our vulnerability in order to access the power that is inherent there. Remember what I said, that vulnerability is at the edge of the core in a way, right? It's right at the edge. So you can think of it as a doorway in. You can think of it as a doorway into the vulnerability, into the power, into the alignment of the core. So without a little risk-taking, we just won't know. And it's okay to feel a little vulnerable. It's okay to feel a little shaky in an endeavor, a little tentative. It's even okay to feel a little contracted. It's okay to feel fear. We're not in this community, the no fear community. We are the fear exists. It has its place and its purpose. And we learn how to tolerate fear and move in spite of it. I feel like I heard someone talking about this thing about, you just kind of put fear in the car. Like it's like in the car with you. Okay, I know you're gonna be there. Elizabeth Gilbert, she talks about this in the creative process, that anytime she starts a creative process, that she knows that fear is going to be there. So she's not denying that anymore. She's not fighting against it. She's just saying, like, all right, we're going on this ride together, aren't we? Yeah, you're going to be there. But you know what? You don't even get to dictate the radio, but you can be there because I know you're going to be there. Fear is also how we know that we're onto something new, that we're growing, that we're not just running over the same old ground. So going back to what is vulnerability, perhaps vulnerability is allowing the sensation of fear to move and still walking towards our core in front of it. When this thing says, my desire feels vulnerable, but my heart's desire and knowing feel like a superpower. The image I get is that desire, we have this idea that desire is pulling out of us, and it can tug us along. It often tugs us on our path. We need desire. We need to know what lights us up, because that's where we're going and where we're meant to go, and where our deep inner body, bringing it back to this body mind split, where our body will give us the feedback, go here. But when our longing is too far outside of us, and perhaps we're even giving it away, there is a vulnerability in that, because you're not in the center. You can think about that you're at the end of your reach and you're going to fall over. But they speak of when they're in their center with it, it feels like a superpower. So here is my advice. I want you to connect the things that feel at the edges in with the center. Experimentation. Oh, I'm experimenting. It's out here. Great. Go out there, but connect it into the center. Bring the things together so they're not separate anymore. Mind, body, longing, heart's desire. Being in a body versus embodiment. That's an interesting one, isn't it? Because when we think of being in a body, we may think of all the things that can go wrong with being in a body. And we may very well have had the experience of a lot of things going wrong with being in the body. But being embodied is that power, that unnameable substance, alive within the physical body. It is spirit and matter. It is form and formless. Intangible, tangible. Okay, so let's see. I hope this is connecting. Okay, so to finish this up today, connection and tending to the connection points within us. This is also what I was just saying, tangible versus intangible, where the moment-to-moment experience meets power and vulnerability. We are cleaning and tending to the connection points, aligning them, brushing them off, bringing them together. Decisions, choice, connecting the edge to the center, trusting that we know the quality of what is real and true versus what is a mask. A mask is an impenetrable, or tries to be an impenetrable energetic structure that lives at our edges. Being willing to take risk in service to our authenticity. and hooking up the mind and the body. And I think that that's the practice right there too. There's another quote: the breath attunes us with all of life. Opportunities to return to breathing. So if you are looking for a way to be in those moments and to practice the hook up, the plug in, return to your breathing. Return to the sensation of your body resting on surfaces. Return to noticing the space you're in. And then keep going. Thank you so much. I hope this is useful, interesting. Let me know your questions for next month. Let me know let me know what you think. There's a lot of wisdom here, so let's share with each other. Have a great day.